You are not a visual learner. You are not an auditory learner. You are not a kinesthetic learner, and you are not any type of learner. And I can prove it. In 2008, a team of cognitive scientists set out to answer a simple question. After 50 years of research on learning styles, thousands of studies, millions of students, entire industries built on the idea, was there any evidence that matching teaching to a person's learning style actually improved outcomes? They reviewed everything, every methodology, every claim, and they found nothing. Not weak evidence, not mixed results, not more research needed, nothing. Zero support for the hypothesis that learning styles exist in any meaningful way. The researchers were blunt. They said if learning styles were real, there would be a specific type of evidence that would have to exist. And that evidence really doesn't exist. 50 years of nothing. Now here's what should disturb you. 93% of teachers in the UK still believe learning styles are real, and then 96% in the Netherlands, 89% worldwide, according to a 2020 study. No decline from, honestly, a decade earlier. The myth outlived the science by decades. It's not, and it's still outliving it. The OECD, or the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, officially classified learning styles as a neuromyth back in 2002. A neuromyth, meaning a misconception about the brain that spread through education despite having no scientific basis. And yet, you probably still believe you're a visual learner, or that your kid is kinesthetic, or that you're just not a math person. You've been operating on a lie about your own mind. And that lie has shaped you to what you've attempted, what you avoided, and who you have become. So why does it persist? Because it was never about helping you learn. In 1949, a psychologist named Bertram Fourier ran an experiment. He gave his students a personality test. A week later, he handed each of them a personalized assessment based on their results. He asked them to rate how accurate it was on a scale of 0 to 5. The average rating was a 4.26. Students said things like, "This is exactly me," and "How did you know this?" Here's the thing. Every student received the exact same text. Word for word, Forer had pulled it from a newsstand astrology book. This is called the Barnum effect. It's named after P.T. Barnum, who allegedly said, "There's a sucker born every minute." The phenomenon is pretty simple. Give someone a vague description of themselves, and they will find ways to make it fit. This is how horoscopes work. This is how cold readings work. And this is exactly how learning styles work. You're a visual learner. Sounds specific, doesn't it? It's not. It's really a mirror, vague enough that almost anyone can see themselves in it. Think about it. Who doesn't prefer pictures to walls of text sometimes? Who doesn't occasionally learn better by doing? The categories are so broad, they compare everyone while describing no one. But here's where it gets insidious. The moment you accepted the label, "I'm a visual learner," you didn't discover how to learn. You decided how you would learn. You filtered future experiences through that identity. You gave yourself permission to disengage when the format didn't match your type. The label didn't describe a limitation. You invented one. And then you lived inside it for years, maybe decades, closing doors you never even opened or even tested, avoiding subjects, skills, and challenges because someone told you they didn't fit your style. And here's what gets darker. The lie was not an accident. Education doesn't teach you how to learn. It teaches you how to be taught. Think about what school actually trained you to do. Wait for instruction, follow the syllabus, ask, will this be on the test? Memorize what you need to pass, forget it afterwards, form knowledge instead of possessing it. You were never taught to learn. You were taught to be managed. And learning styles, just another management tool. Think about it from a teacher's perspective. You have 30 kids in a room, different backgrounds, different speeds, different interests. How do you handle all that? Well, you sort them. You have visual learners, here's your worksheet. Kinesthetic learners, here's your worksheet. Go do some hands-on station. Auditory learners, listen to this recording or this audiobook or this podcast. The labels make management efficient. They create the illusion of personalization while actually standardizing the process. Everyone gets a category. You get a category, you get a category, and everyone gets to stay in their own lane. And guess what? The system gets to run just a lot more smoothly. This was never about you being able to learn better. It was about the system functioning smoother. But it goes deeper than just classroom management. Think about what a learning style really does. It tells you that your capacity is fixed, that you have a type, that some things are for you and some aren't. A student who believes that they can learn anything, who knows how to teach themselves, who can adapt to any format, any challenge, any domain, that student is dangerous. Dangerous to the education industry, dangerous to the credentialing economy, dangerous to every institution that profits from your dependency. If you can learn anything on your own, you don't need more school. You don't need more courses. You don't need more certifications. You don't need permission. The system doesn't fail to teach learning. It succeeds at creating dependency. Learning styles wasn't a bug. It was just a feature of the system. And the cost was enormous, and it still is. Every label you accept becomes a filter, a narrowing, a cage. I'm not a math person, so you stop looking for the version of math that would click. The visual approach, the applied approach, the version connected to something you actually care about. You just close the door on it. I'm a kinesthetic learner, so you give yourself permission to disengage whenever there's nothing to touch. Reading feels wrong, lectures feel wrong, entire domains of knowledge become inaccessible because they don't match your type. You think you're protecting yourself. You're really not. You're amputating capacities you never tested or never even thought of, or you just shut them out already. And you're doing it with words, labels, stories someone told you about yourself that you never questioned. So if learning styles are a myth, what actually works then? Your brain doesn't have a type. It has plasticity. Neuroscience destroyed the learning styles model, but it revealed something far more powerful. Your brain reorganizes itself based on demand. The regions you use to grow stronger, the connections you need to get built, the architecture literally changes shape based on what you do. You are not a fixed system. You are a dynamic system, a process, and processes respond to the environment. There was a Soviet scientist named Nikolai Bernstein. In the 1930s, he studied blacksmiths. He wanted to understand how skilled movement actually works. And what he found was pretty strange. A master blacksmith never swings the hammer the same way twice. And Bernstein measured this pretty precisely with a bunch of different electrodes on each blacksmith, and the angles are varied, the velocities shifted each swing, the muscle activations differed from swing to swing. And yet the outcome was remarkably consistent. The hammer hit the same spot, but the iron shaped correctly. Precision emerged not from repetition, but from adaptation. Bernstein called it repetition without repetition. Each swing had a fresh solution to the immediate problem. The weight of the hammer, the heat of the iron, the angle of the anvil, the fatigue in the arm. The master wasn't executing a memorized pattern. He was responding to the context. And here's the key. The blacksmith's brain after 20 years looked different than when he started. Not because he was born for the work, but because the work shaped the organ. The constraint created the capability. This is what the learning styles model gets exactly backwards. You don't have a learning style. You have learning contexts. The same person learns differently in different environments, with different stakes for different purposes, under different constraints. A kid who can't focus in algebra spends 6 hours mastering a video game without blanking. Does he have ADD? Does he have a learning disability? Or is the context just radically different? The game has clear goals, immediate feedback, genuine consequences, a difficulty curve that adapts to the player. The classroom has none of this. Same kid, same brain, completely different learning outcomes. It was never about his neurology. It was just about his environment. James Gibson, the psychologist who founded ecological psychology, had a term for this. He talked about affordances, which are the possibilities for action that an environment offers to an organism. Learning isn't something that happens inside your brain in isolation. It happens in the relationship between you and your environment. Change the environment, you change the learning. This is why the question, what's your learning style, is the wrong question entirely. It makes you passive. It makes you wait for the right format to show up. It makes you a consumer of education rather than a navigator of it. The right question is, what is this situation demanding, and how do I adapt? That question makes you active, sovereign, capable of learning anything because you're not waiting for permission. You're engaging with problems and letting the problems shape your capability. One question makes you a type, the other makes you a learner. So what does this mean for you right now? It means the question was never, how do I learn best? It was always, what am I trying to build? When you have something to build, whether that's a skill, a project, a business, or a life, you stop asking about your style. You engage with whatever the problem demands. You read when you need to read. You watch when you need to watch. And you do when you need to do. You're going to fail, and you're going to adjust, and you're just going to keep on going. The learning happens in pursuit of the mission, not before it or even after it. This is backwards from how most people think. They believe you study the skills, acquire the knowledge, get the credentials, and then you're ready to build something. No, you start building immediately, and the building reveals what you need to learn. And the need makes the learning stick, and the cycle just continues on and on and on. You don't study skills and then build. You build and the skills emerge. I've watched this happen hundreds and hundreds of times. Someone decides they want to create something, a newsletter, a business, an app, a book. They don't have the skills yet. They're not ready, but they start anyway. And 6 months later, they've learned more than they did in 4 years of school, or even if they went to get their master's degree or even doctorate, because the context really demanded it, because the stakes were real, because the feedback was immediate. The constraint created the capability. This is true for everything. A sonnet isn't limited by 14 lines. The constraint creates the art. A basketball court isn't limited by its boundaries. The constraints create the game. The next challenge isn't blocked by your type. The challenge itself will build the capability you need if you engage with it fully. So here's the identity shift that I propose to you. You were never a visual learner. You were never a kinesthetic learner. You were never a type. You were a learner. That is it. Capable of adaptation, capable of expansion, capable of mastering things no one told you were your style. The labels were never true. They were just stories. And you can stop telling them anytime you want. The cage was made of paper. The bars are just words. Someone told you that you couldn't learn. A teacher, a test, a well-meaning adult who thought that they were helping. And you believed them. That belief shaped years, maybe decades. It closed doors you never tested or even thought to open. It kept you small in ways you can't learn or even see. Every time you said, I'm just not that kind of learner, you were reinforcing walls that didn't exist. But the science is clear now. The limitation was never in your neurology. It was in the story. And stories can change. The labels dissolve the moment you stop believing in them. The cage disappears the moment you realize what it's made of. So here's the question that actually matters. Not, how do I learn? What do you care enough to learn for? When you have that answer, the how takes care of itself. You adapt, you engage, you become, not because you found the right format, but because you found a reason that mattered. That's the difference between someone who's stuck and someone who's growing. It's not intelligence by any means. It's not talent. It's not learning style. It's purpose. The person with something to build will learn whenever they need to learn to build it. The person waiting for the right conditions will wait forever and become an endless dreamer. So stop waiting. Stop asking what type of learner you are. Start asking what you're trying to create. Start building before you're ready. Let the work shape the way the hammer shaped the blacksmith. You were never a type of learner. You were a learner who forgot what they were capable of. Remember,